can tell. It's gonna be a great Noel. It's the Advent Calendar House. Muppets, Pac-Man, Smurfs, and even Garfield's Halloween. We're gonna take a trip down memory lane. Frosty, Rudolph, and a bunch you've probably never seen. It's Mike and pals that come to entertain. Turn the knob and lift the latch for fun and laughs that can't be matched. But just beware the icy patch. It's the Advent Calendar House.
Welcome to the Advent Calendar House, a holiday podcast that can turn the world off with a smile, and that's why it's only available in audio format. Every once in a while, I'll get a recommendation for a Christmas episode that I just did not think to look up, only to find myself pleasantly surprised. This is what's such special. So let's put on our best international party hats and take a trip around the world and around the corner to feast on a 1974 episode of The Mary Tyler Moore Show, which insists it's not a Christmas story.
Who can turn the world on with her smile? Who can take a nothing day and suddenly make it all seem worthwhile?
I am little Dutch girl who's prepared an 8-course meal of dishes I may or may not know how to pronounce, Mike Westfall. And joining me, because I rang his doorbell and he actually got out of the bath to answer it, please welcome Alonzo Duralde. Hello, Alonzo.
Hi, Mike. It's great to be back.
Oh, thank you for being here. We will get to that episode in a bit, but first, our top story. Alonzo, you have something exciting in the works. I've mentioned your work before, but for those just tuning in, you've got a revised and updated edition coming out of one of your books, Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas.
I do indeed. It's going to be coming out this fall. Very excited about it. I published Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas back in 2010.
Wow.
It's kind of staggering to me that it is now a 15-year-old book. But that meant there was a great opportunity to bring in so many movies that came out since that book came out. Everything from, Arthur Christmas to Christmas Eve in Miller's Point from last year. And then also some classics that I just missed the first time around. So if you have the first book, you'll find this new edition is loaded with new stuff you don't already have. And if you're getting it for the first time, it's a good place to hop in.
Great. Well, tell me, how long have you been working on this new edition? How long have you had it in the works? It was like, I need to update this.
It was the kind of thing every so often where like a new movie would open and people would say, "Oh, are you going to update the book?" And I was like, yeah, sure, one of these days. And then frankly, I stole the idea from TCM. They put out their book about Christmas movies that came out a few years after Have Yourself came out. And then a couple years ago, they did an updated edition. I was like, ooh, updated edition. That's a great idea. I'm going to get right on that. And so thankfully, the folks at Applause Books, which is now part of the Bloomsbury family, figured I'd sold enough copies of the first go round that it was worth, taking another dip. So here we are.
Great. Was there anything in particular you were excited to add or anything else you wanted to highlight this time around?
Yeah, totally. I mean, just because I every time I would see a new great Christmas movie, I was like, oh God, I wish I could, I wish this were a website and not a book and I could just sort of cram it in there. So Arthur Christmas was definitely one that I wanted to write about. The horror movie Better Watch Out, I thought was a lot of fun and really smart.
Haven't watched that yet. It's like on my to-do list to watch it, but
it's a good one. Yeah.
No one else in my household has any interest in anything. Well, my oldest daughter, who is 15, she might be getting to that point where starting to be interested in that. So maybe.
And it's not a super gory horror movie. It's more suspenseful, but it's very clever and really well done. And then, like some cool little indies. Yen Tan, who's a filmmaker I love, made this really beautiful film called 1985 about a guy who comes home to Texas to spend one last Christmas with his parents. And he's never come out to them, and he's certainly never told them that he's now dealing with HIV. But they know more than they let on. It's a really great movie with Corey Michael Smith, who you might know from Gotham or from Carol. Okay. Carol being another movie that I'm thrilled to have in this edition. And then also just kind of looking back at stuff that I had not encountered yet when I wrote the first one. So like there's a cool early 60s noir film called Blast of Silence that's set over Christmas. A rather grand made-for-TV musical with Angela Lansbury called Mrs. Santa Claus.
Oh, I know that one.
Yeah, I'd missed the memo on that one. So just a lot of fun stuff to kind of either bring into this new edition because it had, surfaced since the book came out, or just me being dumb and having not gotten to everything I should have gotten to. So, it was a fun combo of those two things.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of ground to cover, especially if you're including TV movies like that, which I know you did. I stick to TV on this podcast mostly.
Sure.
I have made some exceptions, but we've both have covered things both in your book and on this podcast. It's a Very Merry Muppet Christmas Movie is one of the earliest things on the list. I think there were a few in your Scrooge-a-Palooza chapter.
Definitely, yes. All of the Scrooges and Uptight Career Woman movies were made for television.
Yeah, I did appreciate that you organized everything into categories like that. It makes sense. It makes it something I want to read and not just a reference book that's just a big alphabetical list. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. I think I'm kind of the opposite. I think for me, the TV movies are sort of the exception, but there were some that were just like, I thought so important that they really needed to go in. Mrs. Santa Claus now being one of them, but like The Gathering, I still think is just a great tearjerker Christmas movie with Ed Asner and Maureen Stapleton. And it's Randall Kleiser having just directed Boy in the Plastic Bubble and about to direct Grease. So, he knows what he's doing.
Oh, I didn't realize the timeline on that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And the Homecoming, which is, the basically the pilot for the Waltons.
Okay.
I did a whole separate book with the Deck the Hallmark guys that's just about Hallmark movies. So not that I don't have respect for those as well, but for Have Yourself, it's mostly theatrical releases.
Yeah, Hallmark is its own ball game, and I really don't dip into that. Like, even personally, I just haven't gotten there. Well, I don't have the Hallmark channel for one, but well, wonderful. I can't wait to read it. Folks, I don't normally start with the commercial break, but I think anyone listening to this is very much in your target audience. So
I should hope so. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm thrilled to be here to talk about one of my favorite TV shows. In fact, one of my favorite episodes of one of my favorite TV shows.
Yeah, so you're also here because I invited you on to talk about whatever special you wanted. This was one of the first recommendations you gave me. So what made this stand out for you, and when did it? Well, first, let me ask: is this a favorite of yours?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm old, so I actually watched the Mary Tyler Moore Show as a child in its original run, but obviously much of it went sailing right over my head. And it is a show that I have gone back to and rewatched start to finish 2 or 3 times in my adult life. And there's a Christmas episode in the first season called Christmas and the Hard Luck Kid, which is actually a kind of an in-joke because James L. Brooks and Alan Burns, who were the main creative forces behind the Mary Tyler Moore Show, had previously been writers for the Marlo Thomas sitcom That Girl, and they had a Christmas and the Hard Luck Kid episode with her as well. So they must have really liked that title. But then this is in season 5, and as the title suggests, it's not a Christmas story in that it's not December yet. But there happens to be a snowstorm. Everyone is at their last nerve with everybody else, and they're all trapped inside the station. And not only are they forced to stay together, but they're forced to celebrate Christmas together. Yes. And that just brings out one of my favorite genres of like Christmas movie is the sort of dysfunctional family Christmas where they're all stuck at this dinner together and sniping at each other exactly, and kind of trapped with the people they can't stand and having to sort of figure out how are we going to work through this. And what magic will Christmas, provide to kind of make people thaw a little and have reasonable conversations with each other and bury, their grudges, And so we see that very compactly offered up in one sitcom episode here.
Yes, I'm very glad you brought this to my attention. I'm always happy to add something I haven't seen before in the mix. I do remember watching the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Of course, my first exposure to it was at Nick at Night. I've talked about Mary herself before on here. My parents were huge fans of the Dick Van Dyke Show. So when Nick and Night started airing this, I was interested enough to stay up and watch a little bit more of it, I guess. And then even more when I started working in broadcast news myself. I used to work for an all news radio station. And at one point, my job was similar enough to Mary's as an associate producer that this hit home a bit more than when I was 9, 10, 11.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can watch it as a kid, and it's fun, and it's sharp, and it's bright. But yeah, you watch it as an adult, and you really understand more things about the workplace and relationships and all of the stuff that this show is digging into in a way that was mostly unprecedented for American network TV, and that 50 plus years later still really holds up.
Yeah, that's what I keep reading. That this really had, maybe not first, but it broke a lot of ground. Well, I guess first, but broke a lot of ground.
Never call anything the first, because something that got canceled after 4 episodes was probably the first,
Yeah.
But yeah, they were really trying for something new. CBS was very not happy about the idea of Mary Richards being a single woman. They were like, can she be a widow? Can she be a divorcee? And so there were a lot of stuff there that they really got by or sort of insisted upon. And she had enough clout coming off of the Dick Van Dyke Show, and her husband, Grant Tinker, was, producing the show. They brought in a lot of women writers, far more than any other show at that moment was doing. And that was bringing a real perception about the kind of stuff that Mary was dealing with, on the dating scene or in the workplace. No. I think you look at other sitcoms of that period and they clang in a very early 70s way, whereas this is Shakespeare. Like this is sitcom level Shakespeare, in terms of just like sharp, snappy dialogue. And apart from a few like cultural references that maybe people would need to have footnoted for them, absolutely still, plays as fresh and new today.
Sure. It feels like it. And I had never seen this episode before you mention it. So we watched Not a Christmas Story, the 9th episode of the show's 5th season. It first aired November 9th, 1974, a Saturday night on CBS. And at first I thought, well, that seems early for a Christmas episode, but it's on the tin. It's not a Christmas story.
Don't make them tap the sign.
No, right. We'll explain a little bit more in a bit, but this episode seems to be pretty fondly remembered, too. As you were saying, I found one list of the show's top 25 episodes on one website, and they put this at number 18. I thought that was pretty respectable.
Yeah. And given the number of classic Mary Tyler Moore episodes there are, I mean, that's a competitive list to be on.
Sure. But if you want to watch this, as of this recording, the Mary Tyler Moore Show is streaming in its entirety on Hulu and I believe Amazon Prime. I also found copies of it elsewhere in some of the usual places.
And if you're a physical media head, they have released a complete run of the Mary Tyler Moore series on DVD as well.
Oh, yes. But we open this episode in the newsroom of WJM in Minneapolis, which, of course, I had to look up if that was a real TV station. It's not, or at least it wasn't. There's now a Christian TV station using those call letters, but not actually using them. And that's as far into that as I researched, because I didn't intend to go any deeper into that. But here's Mary, along with her head news writer, Murray.
Well, I think I've got something here. What do you think about this?
Good evening. This is Ted Baxter with news from around the world and around the corner. Yeah, I like it. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I think it works.
Played by Gavin MacLeod. Hey, we know him.
The future Captain Steubing.
Yeah, that was the last time we heard about him on this podcast, was an episode of The Love Boat. And I also did, he had a cameo in that Pat Boone Christmas special I talked about.
Oh, where he's like the one where he's dressed as a chicken or something? Or is that an Easter special?
I think that's the Easter one.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, this is really quick. He just says, no, can't come to your Christmas party, and hangs up, which is just a lot of real quick cameos.
He's also got a fun appearance in the Blake Edwards movie, The Party, as a toupee wearing producer who brings Claudine Longet to the titular affair.
Well, all right. But it's quitting time after a Friday night edition of the news. But before they leave, Murray's been kicking around an idea for a new catchphrase for their news anchor, Ted Baxter, who takes a look at it and tries it out. It's just a sentence, just a cute little opening. Just, good evening, I'm Ted Baxter with news from around the world and around the corner.
I like it. I really like it.
I'm not so sure about it anymore.
No, I mean it, Murr. It's good. It's better than good. It's me. You son of a gun, you did it again.
Thanks.
Say, can I take this with me? Take it home on the weekend and learn it?
Ted Baxter is played by Ted Knight. I think most people my age know him best from Caddyshack, but I watched the Mary Tyler Moore Show first, so that's how I know him.
And there's a Too Close for Comfort generation out there.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They're younger than me, but they hold that show close to their bosom. But yeah, Ted Baxter rather, was a singular character and won him several Emmys and was just I think he's one of those characters like Eve Harrington, where you say the name and people immediately know what you're talking about. He describes a whole category of people.
Yeah, that's very well put. A whole category of people. Well, Ted walks back into the newsroom to ask Murray if he thinks they should reverse it and say news from around the corner and around the world. But Murray prefers it the way he wrote it, and Ted says, okay, walks out again. Murray and Mary, well, that's confusing. Does that come up a lot? They named a character Murray in Mary's show?
Let it roll off the tongue.
Yeah, really. They continue putting on their hats and coats. It's Minnesota. It's cold. When Ted walks back in again saying, listen, I just read this thing both ways to Ollie the Elevator Man, and he likes it my way, and here we go. This whole episode starts with a fight over this corny little sentence, but it's Murray's corny little sentence, so he's very defensive about it. Very intentional with his words. You understand that as a writer.
Certainly, yeah. No, if you got to pick the hill you're going to die on, and I don't blame Murray for everything we've seen him put up with in terms of how Ted handles his copy.
Sure.
I can see where eventually you reach a breaking point, especially when his description of his weekend plans are, taking his kid to the dentist and, fixing the roof. And then later I'm going to get to the unpleasant stuff.
Yeah. Well, Mary looks like she can tell how this is about to go. So she tries to piece out of there, but Ted brings her back in the room, takes her by the arm to bring her back, because this is now serious business. And he also stops the executive producer, Lou Grant, from leaving to weigh in on this. Lou, of course, is played by Christmas all-star Ed Asner.
Yes.
Well, have a nice weekend. Oh, wait a minute, Lou. Just not so fast.
All right, Ted. Have a nice
This is where I know him from when I first saw Elf, to the point where when he first appeared on screen, I asked, is that Lou Grant? It is.
When Ed Asner died a couple years ago, I started making like a kind of a photo mosaic of all the Christmas stuff he'd been in, and it added up. I think I wound up with like 25 different like shows and movies. He played Santa a bunch, you know. Of course, like as many of our great American cultural Christmas traditions, he was Jewish, but played Santa a lot. Was a great Santa, and yeah, like voiced Christmas animated stuff, and yeah, there's a lot of holiday in his resume.
Sure, yeah, we talked about all of the other reindeer on here. He was Santa in that. Ted tells them they need an executive decision on this new opening, this one sentence, and Lou takes one look at the paper. It's been typed on and declares, I've decided to let Mary decide. Because every great producer knows when to pass the buck.
Delegate.
Oh, yeah. And Mary says she will decide on Monday. Remember, it's Friday night, and they're trying to get out of there. It's the freaking weekend, y'all. Leaving Murray and Ted alone in the newsroom, a sight I have never seen because all of the news stations I have ever worked for were 24-hour ones. That's where the jobs are. They're always hiring someone who doesn't mind working overnights.
Right.
But Ted leaves and tells Mary he hopes he's wearing comfortable shoes because when he tells Ollie the Elevator Man, whom we never see, by the way.
No. He's the Vera of this show.
There we go, yeah. If he tells Ollie they're going with Murray's version of the opening, Murray's going to have to walk down 23 flights of stairs. This is where I realized I don't think I've ever met an elevator operator in real life.
Yeah, that's one of those jobs that by the end of the 70s, I think they were pretty extinct. I encountered one or two in my childhood, I think, but for the most part, yeah, they've been self-service.
No, I'm just not going to the right places. Everywhere I've been made me push the button myself.
Yeah. Well, because this was in the pre-button days where they had like that.
Oh, they had of course.
Like on ships,
right.
the whatever, I don't know what you call that thing, but
I know what you're talking about, though. Well, enough of that. We fade to the following day at Mary's place with the finest balcony view in Minneapolis. Someone's ringing her door buzzer while Mary's taking a bath, but she decides to get out and answer the door anyway. Listen, if I'm in the shower and my doorbell rings, I'm not getting out to answer it.
No, but then we don't have Mary Tyler Moore's legs. So,
we don't. Listen, here's everything you need to know about this scene. IMDb has a photo gallery for this episode.
Oh, no.
It has 27 screenshots. 20 of them are just Mary in a towel answering the door. It's Murray who answers. That's almost 75% of this gallery for this episode.
And it was her show, so she knew full well what she was doing.
Oh, she knew what she was doing. Oh, no, it's a great little scene, but I thought when I first flipped through this gallery, I'm like, is this like a whole thing about this episode? Is this the towel episode? No, it's just a passing scene, and someone just really, really liked this part. And I understand.
You can if you print them out, you can flip them and animate it.
It's pretty close. It's just Mary Tyler Moore in a towel making awkward faces at Gavin MacLeod, who finds himself distracted by the towel too. So he just stopped by to apologize about the other night, and he quickly changed the subject. Boy, that's a great towel. He's a married man, but I think he's always had eyes on Mary.
Oh, there's always been a bit of an unrequited crush there.
Mm-hmm. But he pulls himself together, says it doesn't matter to him which version of the opening Mary decides. But she tells him she's already decided they're going with the original way that Murray wrote it. And he flings out his arms to give Mary a thank you hug, but she stops him. And that's the end of the towel scene. That's most of that photo gallery. No, this can't be how this one is remembered.
No, I don't think so. I think just somebody had a lot of screenshots and decided who's going to share them with IMDb.
Sure. It's like, well, can't just throw these out.
Yeah. This is television history we're talking about.
Right. I considered making it the thumbnail of this episode, but I thought better of it and went with Mary and her party helmet from later. But
I was going to say the hats, the party hats are sublime.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
No.
We're now back in the newsroom on Monday, and the big story is that there's a snowstorm hitting the Twin Cities, and Lou tells Mary to make sure their photographers get some different footage of the storm than the usual snowball fights and snowmen, and Mary jokes, how about kids in their underwear running through a fire hydrant? But her point's clear to me. Snowmen and snowball fights are what you get when your top story is it's snowing.
Yeah, and he rattles off like 4 or 5 different things, and it's like, well, what's left? What that leaves,
Yeah, when it's a heavier blizzard, you get video of people shoveling out their cars, and that's what tells the story. It may be unoriginal, but it ain't broke, so don't fix it.
And worth noting, by the way, this is an era of TV news, and they talk about this periodically on the show, where nothing's on videotape. Like they are literally sending out cameramen out into the field and having to come back and develop it and then throw it onto the news. So this is like if you watch that movie September 5th that came out last year about the terrorist incident that unfolded during the 1972 Olympics and how ABC
I know
Sports
what you're talking about.
Suddenly found themselves covering it. We're talking actual film.
Sure.
That had to be actually developed so that it could then show on television.
Yeah, B-roll's not a thing yet, folks. But anyway, after that, into the newsroom walks Betty White.
Yes.
Well, it's not Betty White as herself. She plays Sue Ann Nivens, host of WJM's Happy Homemaker show. But it's always a joy to see Betty White.
Just consider one single snowflake alone. So delicate, so fragile, so ethereal. And yet, let a billion of them come together through the majestic force of nature. They can screw up a whole city.
Yeah, this is, I think when we think about the modern version of Betty White,
Sure.
So much of it really owes a lot to this show because she was a TV lifer. Like from the moment the first cathode ray tube was plugged in, she was there.
Yeah.
Doing like local LA television. She had one of the very first sitcoms called Life with Elizabeth. And she made a whole career out of like being sweetness and light. And Mary Tyler Moore was like, I have a role for you where she is a horny man trap who also is on TV giving sweetness and light. And so, you know, the multifaceted, naughty Betty White that we've come to know and love starts here on the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Oh, I knew that they were similar characters, but I didn't know if that started earlier. Wow. So this is really the start of that.
Yeah. Okay. And then interestingly, when she and Rue McClanahan were first cast on the Golden Girls, they wanted Betty White to play Blanche and Rue McClanahan to play Rose. And they were both like, well, we've already done that because, you know, Betty White had already been the horny one on this show.
Sure.
And Rue McClanahan had already been the ditzy one on Maude. And so they swapped and that led to, you know, classic television again.
Yeah. Rest is history. Last time I mentioned Betty White on this podcast, she was Mrs. Claus in one of the Prep and Landing shorts.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
Yeah, like the really short one. But so Sue Ann wanders into the room, goes on about how beautiful the snow is and how amazing it is that one snowflake can be so delicate and so fragile, and yet a billion of them come together through the majestic force of nature. They can screw up a whole city. That might
and nobody
be the
delivers that line. Yeah, I think it is. And nobody delivers that like Betty White.
But Mary asks Sue Ann about her festive outfit, which is the first sign of Christmas in this episode.
Yes.
She's taping a Christmas special of her show a month out, as you do. We're recording this in April for July.
Yeah.
This episode of the Mary Tyler Moore Show was filmed in August.
Every Christmas album you ever loved was probably recorded in July.
Oh, yeah, in the dead of summer, sure. Helped them feel cooler in the studio. But Sue Ann is wearing this bright red dress with a holly berry boutonniere and an apron with Christmas trees and a big Santa Claus head and jingle bells. It's very Betty White in 1974 Christmas dress, and I love it.
Yeah, if I did drag, this would be my cosplay.
I mean, it's a great outfit. Yeah. Some drag queen out there would look amazing in this.
Either Jinx or Dayla, either one of them, I think, in their annual holiday show could totally rock it. And maybe they have, and I don't know.
Maybe. The special Sue Ann is taping is themed around Christmas dinners of many lands, or as she calls it, Yuletide yummies for worldwide tummies. And how is that not a book?
It's, you know, it's just sitting there. Somebody needs to like leap on that one.
It really is. We have the podcast. Seasons Eatings exists. Glenn, I think I found your new tagline. Wow.
It's been 50 years waiting for somebody to pick up the mantle.
Yeah, I mean that's beautiful writing just on its own, but Sue Ann has cooked all of these Yuletide yummies from around the world, and she came to invite the news crew to her set after the 6 o'clock news for dinner. She wants to turn it into a Christmas party. She wants to sing carols and play games, but Mary tells her with the most sincere face she can muster that she's meeting someone at the theater. Okay, y'all don't want to go to a Christmas party after work? I don't care what month it is.
I think it's more they don't want to go to Sue Ann's Christmas party just because, you know, as we've all gotten to know the character over the years. But, you know, of course, and any of us would be so lucky.
Sure. Sue Ann then asks Murray, who tells her he's having company over to play bridge on a Monday. I don't play a lot of bridge, but it doesn't seem like a Monday night game to me. Tuesday at the earliest. But then Sue Ann turns to Lou, who admits he's not doing anything. So you'll come? No. With the most perfect emotionless Ed Asner face.
Oh, God bless.
Says he hates that sort of stuff and turns his back to Sue Ann so he can stare at the wall. Well, he's staring at the story assignment board, but it's blank. So effectively, he's staring at the wall.
Essentially, yes.
So Sue Ann shrugs as pleasantly as she can, concedes maybe next year, makes her exit. Shortly after which, Ted bumbles in, his coat wrapped very tightly around himself. Just a few minutes before he's supposed to be on the air, he explains his car got stuck in the snowdrift. He called a tow truck, but it hasn't come, and his girlfriend is still in the car waiting for it. Which, when we meet the girlfriend, it'll become more believable, but wow, it was the 70s, man.
Well, and this relationship particularly, like there was kind of a running joke where he would leave her in these terrible situations, or they would show up late somewhere because they'd been driving around forever trying to find a meter that was already paid for or something. You know?
Yeah, that seems like Ted. But Mary hands Ted a script, and he's about to head into the studio when he stops and points out, hey, their new opening is still written, news from around the world and around the corner, and here we go.
I thought it over, and I decided that we would do it the way Murray wrote it.
Well, Murray may have written it, and you may have thought it over, but I'm the one that has to say it. And I can't say it.
Ted, of course
No,
you can.
I can't. Wouldn't sound right. It's not me. If there's one thing I've learned, I've got to be me.
You're right. It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it.
He doesn't believe in it.
No, Ted's a big old diva. That's the one thing I remember. That's the one thing anyone remembers about Ted Baxter. Yeah. But it reminded me of Harrison Ford saying essentially the same thing to George Lucas about Star Wars. I believe he said, George, you can type this shit, but you sure can't say it. But Star Wars, this opening sentence is not. So Mary crosses his out and tells Ted to open the show he always has for the last 8 years, which Ted has already forgotten, so he has to write it down. Or maybe he never knew.
Yeah, he was the original teleprompter guy.
Yeah. I mean, again, my job at one point was very much like Mary's, where I'm handing in typed or printed scripts into the newsroom for folks. So I get it.
Did you ever throw your hat in the air?
No, well, probably. It was radio, so no one saw it.
It seems like it's part of the job.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Murray gives Mary the business, tells her, if you're the associate producer of the show, act like it. So she turns around and tells Ted,
Mr. Grant has given me the authority to decide which is the right way to do this opening, and I have decided which is the right way. And that is the way you are going to do it. You are going to say this is Ted Baxter with news from around the corner world. What is it? Around the world. That's the way he wrote it, that's the way I want it, and that's the way you're going to say it.
That's the way you're going to say it, please.
So she says please, and he gives in, but Murray's not satisfied. He's like, you're giving in to his demand for a please? Come on, man.
It's also worth noting that while this conversation is happening, the news has started.
Yeah. Lou walks out of the office and asks, why isn't Ted on the air? Ted was that late. That's very stereotypical news anchor in a comedy behavior. I haven't worked with any Ted Baxter type anchors, thankfully, so I don't have this experience.
Well, I mean, he's usually on time just because he spends a lot of time in makeup. It's the blizzard, I think, that's the exception here. But again, another great sort of Ed Asner delivery where he comes out and in the butter wouldn't melt in his mouth voice says, I hate to interrupt, but could someone tell me why the news is on and the news anchor is not?
Right. And it takes Ted a beat after that, but he realizes, oh no, grabs his script and run-ins there. And as y'all know, I do a lot of starting and stopping when I watch these things to take notes. And that's how I noticed subtle little details, like how the various clocks on the wall showing the time in different parts of the world were indeed showing the top of the hour. That was a very nice touch. And I went back to check. They were not just pointing at the top of the hour the whole time. So
no, that's quality TV.
Yeah, they took particular care into changing the times on the wall for every scene.
And you know, by season 5, they were like, "Oh, those damn clocks."
Yeah.
Seemed like a good idea when we designed the set, but now every time we got to make sure that this scene happened after that scene, so they had to be pointing, and we have to always know what time it is, like, you know. But yeah, this is actually a specific time-related gag.
Yeah. I wonder if they got letters. I wonder if they missed one.
Oh, someone noticed.
Someone with a typewriter, very angrily. So Mary, Murray, and Lou all watch a monitor as Ted runs in and reads his opening, The Ted Baxter Way. And yeah, you know what? I liked it better Murray's way, too.
There's a conversation to be had. I think both versions convey a certain something. And it's about like, what are people expecting from local news versus, but Ted's just being Ted because he's being Ted.
Sure. Yeah. And he was already flustered running in there, but he whiffed on the opening. And Murray said, I knew he was going to do that, storms up to get his coat and announces he quits. He's quitting over that. Mary tries to reason with him, saying she doesn't think Ted meant to do it, but
Of course.
And sure enough, Ted peeks his head out from the studio and says, say, Murray. And that's how we go to commercial with Murray storming out.
Burger King gift certificates are back. This year we've got something nifty. 2 new sizes for the thrifty. $50 or $2.50. Have it your way. Now Burger King gift certificates come 2 ways. 5 for $2.50, singles for 50 cents. So you can give a nice little gift without splitting up a whole big book.
Christmas is about traditions. Throughout the holidays, friends and family gather together to share love, laughter, and a bounty of Christmas foods. We all love tracing our family traditions back through the generations to find out where they began. But have you ever wondered about the food found on your holiday tables year after year? Join me, Glenn Warren, as the host of Seasons Eatings, and travel the world as we explore the history and origins of your favorite Christmas foods. New episodes are released every month. You can find Seasons Eatings at seasonseatingspodcast.com and wherever you download your favorite podcast. So join me, Glenn Warren, for your next serving of Seasons Eatings.
So after that, remember what I was saying about B-roll footage of people dealing with a blizzard? That's the first thing we see when we come back from the commercial break.
Yeah, for a show that was filmed, at Television City in Hollywood, they really did try to bring in a little, Minneapolis ambience whenever they could.
Sure.
Like they would periodically go back and add new little segments to the opening credits. Like that actually Mary would schlep to Minneapolis and walk around, grocery stores or whatever. But it did. Of course, you would catch them on things like the first episode back after summer vacation. They all had the deepest tans.
Sure. Guy shoveling his car out of more than a foot of snow. That brought back awful memories. I've told that story before, but it's about to hit home here. So we return to the newsroom, and Mary finishes explaining what all the heck happened that made Murray quit and leave. And Murray walks back in and asks, excuse me, may I use the phone? Lou says, it's your phone, and Murray defiantly, almost robotically shouts, it used to be my phone. It's not anymore.
Drama queen.
Really. Full of them. So he calls his wife and tells her he can't get his car out of the parking lot, and the streets won't be cleared until midnight, so don't wait up. And Lou says if they're keeping cars off the road, can you get that story on the air? And Murray tells him to ask someone who works here. He's serious about this.
Yeah.
But he also has nowhere else he can go, so he has to stick around at his, as of very recently, old job.
Yeah, you think it's awkward when you say goodbye to people at a party or something and then you can't leave. Imagine quitting in a huff and then not being able to go anywhere.
Yeah, this is the enjoy the movie U2 and then you sit next to him. Mary's idea of trying to talk some sense into Murray is just her walking around going, Murray, with a you're joking, right? Smile on her face. Just Murray, Murray, Murray.
Murray, Murray, Murray.
And Lou's had enough. He says he asked Mary to handle a simple matter for him, just a couple of words, and what happens? Chaos. He starts yelling at Mary, but Murray comes to Mary's defense, saying if you weren't in such a hurry to get to your poker game, you could have settled this. But Mary finally speaks up for herself, says it's my job to make decisions, and I think I made a darn good one. And Lou asks, why yelling at Mary? And she shouts, because I'm too much of a coward to yell at you. And amid all of this yelling, Ted emerges grinning, "Great show, eh, guys?" So Mary turns on Ted, who explains he just couldn't go out there and do something he knew was wrong. But Mary says she made a decision, and Ted calls it a lousy decision. Everyone is shouting at each other just in time for Sue Ann to walk back in and cheerfully exclaim, "Have you heard? We're snowed in."
Great news, everybody.
Now they can have their Christmas dinner after all, which, yeah, we would jump at the chance to have Christmas dinner in November with Betty White, but the newsroom is less enthused at this point. Well, Ted's just confused. He wasn't here for Sue Ann's first visit, so he asked, "Whatever happened to Thanksgiving? You know, like half your Facebook feed." The others try and explain they're not really in the mood, but Sue Ann stops them and reminds them, "You're going to have to eat something. You can have some stale cracker from the vending machine or a sumptuous 8-course banquet with me." Sold.
Well, the real selling point is plus enough booze to knock you all on your teeth.
Yes, love that line. She goes on with a very fancy sounding menu featuring souffle tour legende, ville à la grecque, and enough free booze to knock you off in your keisters. Well, thank goodness for subtitles. I had to look up souffle tour legende, and Google returned one result: the transcript of this episode.
Yeah, they you know, one of the more famous episodes of this show is where Mary is entertaining a politician and has to put on this fancy dinner, and Sue Ann volunteers to come and cook the meal for her, and she makes a veal Prince Orloff. And it's just this running thing where they keep saying veal Prince Orloff. And of course, when you Google veal Prince Orloff, all you get are things about that episode or people making up recipes after the fact of what maybe veal Prince Orloff was.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I think this was a thing with Sue Ann where they would create nonsense gourmet dishes for her to craft.
Oh, that's perfect. Oh, I gotta find a recipe now just to see it. I'll post it in the show notes. Go make Sue Ann's non-existent dishes from around the world. But it's the booze that gets everyone up off their seats, and they all head out just as Ted's girlfriend, Georgette, walks in.
Hello, everybody.
Come on, Georgette.
Where are we going?
Christmas dinner.
Oh, Ted, just once, couldn't we please pay the full price and have it on December 25th?
Georgette is played by Georgia Engel, who is the epitome of, hey, it's that actor.
The great Georgia Engel. Yeah, she has some of the greatest comic timing on this show. This is one of those things where, like, you know, she and Sue Ann both come in like midway through the run.
Right.
And often with sitcoms, it's sort of like, you know, you get that Cousin Oliver bit of desperation where like, oh, the cast members you really like left to go do their own thing. You know, they lose Valerie Harper's Rhoda and Cloris Leachman's Phyllis to their own shows.
Right.
But, you know, Sue Ann and Georgette both wind up becoming MVPs in this ensemble. They integrate perfectly, and they fill a need for, you know, the way these characters interact with each other. And yeah, Georgia Engel is just nails so many unforgettable lines on this series.
She does, yeah. So a lot of you probably remember Georgia Engel from Everybody Loves Raymond as Brad Garrett's mother-in-law. I remember her on Coach. Her character was named Shirley Burley. Last time I remember seeing Georgia Engel was on The Office, where they all went to Florida for a few weeks, and Aaron stayed behind a bit longer and moved in with this older woman, and it was Georgia Engel.
Oh, wow.
That's everyone who's in this episode. Was Rhoda gone by this point?
Yeah, Rhoda was there like for the first 2 seasons, I think, and then
that was it.
Got her show.
Okay.
Yeah. She and Phyllis leave pretty early because the show Mary Tyler Moore's show had gotten so popular that they were able to, like, you know, spin them off into sort of other MTM produced entities of their own.
Right. Yeah, they both got shows. I forgot about Cloris Leachman's.
Yeah, they both pop up in the finale.
Right.
But yeah, they were gone at this point, but you know, not that they weren't missed, but there was enough else going on without them. You know?
Sure. Yeah. So we all head down to the set of The Happy Homemaker, which is indeed all decked out for Christmas dinner. We've got a tree lined with tinsel. We got red and green tablecloths and place settings. And of course, mistletoe, which Lou makes the mistake of standing under. So Sue Ann plants a big old kiss on him. And that is the widest I've ever seen Ed Asner's eyes open.
And there's a great punchline to that bit as well.
Yeah, Sue Ann, it's asparagus fern, but what the hell? I timed it. That's an 8-second kiss, and it's a long 8 seconds. And the studio audience loves it. And this is a genuine live studio audience.
Yeah.
So Sue Ann has everyone sit down. At first, she says Murray and Mary can sit next to each other, but they're both still mad and doing the thing where their backs are turned, like, if I can't see you, I don't have to interact with you. So Sue Ann sits her next to Ted, but Mary's mad at him too. So, Sue Ann, why don't you sit next to Ted? Okay. The last seat left is at the end next to Lou, so fine. It's a TV show within a TV show, so they actually have an excuse to only have seats on the side of the table that's facing the camera.
I had not thought about that, but you're absolutely right.
Got to see everybody.
They're on a set diegetically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It actually makes sense here.
Yeah.
And then Sue Ann brings out a big basket of hats she used for her special. Remember, it's Yuletide Yummies for worldwide tummies. So all of these international hats look like they're straight out of It's a Small World.
Totally.
Sue Ann puts on a little Dutch girl's hat. She gives Georgette a Scottish Glengarry bonnet, it's called. I could not place Ted's hat. It's tall and black with a chain around a blue and white cloth.
I think it's Russian.
Russian.
That's
okay.
my guess. Yeah.
Okay.
It like Tsarist Russia.
Yeah. All right. Murray's wearing a Swiss Alpine hat, and Mary gets the World War I era Prussian pickle helm. Lou gets a sombrero, so
yes, he does.
He and Mary protest. They don't want to wear any funny hats. They're not children, but Sue Ann sweetly tells them, like they're children, that if they don't put on the hats, then they can't have any dinner.
And what's great is that everyone's wearing these absurd hats, but they all have like the hardest frowns on their face. They're annoyed.
Yeah, the camera just cuts to each of them grimacing with their funny hats.
They're mad at each other. They're mad at having to be at this dinner. They're mad at the blizzard. And now they add insult to injury. That's where this fun festive hat, and they're just grimacing under it.
I love it. Except Georgette, she loves this.
No, she's game. Always game.
Great. She helps Sue Ann with the first dish, braised carp in honey and raisin sauce from Russia. And yeah, that's where Ted's hat must be from. And while they're serving the fish, Sue Ann invites the others to open their Christmas songbooks. And at this point, part of me is thinking, heck with this episode. I want to watch the special Sue Ann taped.
See, that's the thing. I think nowadays they would have made that as like a YouTube extra or a little Hulu sideline thing, like a 10-minute version of the Yuletide Yummies for Worldwide Tummy
Oh, that would have been great. Yeah, like at the turn of the century, everybody was doing those web exclusive things.
Exactly.
Lou protests again. It's November. They don't want to sing Christmas carols, but Sue Ann assures him it's okay. They're non-denominational. Which gets a laugh, but then one of the songs ends up being Silent Night, which is kind of entirely denominational.
Yes, non-denominational.
Yes. But Murray's still in a fighting mood. He snaps at Lou, who elected you spokesman for the group, and his voice gets angrier and angrier as he finishes the sentence.
Who elected you spokesman for the rest of us, Lou? If we want to sing, we'll sing. And I want to sing, so let's sing.
Ted and Lou don't want to sing, so Sue Ann leaves the decision of whether or not they sing to Mary. And Lou leans in and asks, think you can handle it? And she defiantly decides, let's sing. So they begin with the longest possible Christmas song they can start with.
Of course.
The 12 Days of Christmas.
The last song you want to sing when you were already singing under duress.
Oh, my goodness, yes. So Murray takes the first day, but when Sue Ann throws it to Ted for day 2, he hesitates. And Murray snaps, maybe he wants to study it over the weekend. So Ted answers that by singing "Two turtle doves" through his gritted teeth, and Murray bellows even louder, "And a partridge in a pear tree," each of them staring daggers at each other. And this is now the funniest argument I've seen in a while.
On the third day of Christmas, my true love gave to me. Lou.
3 French hens.
I can't hear you, Lou.
3 French hens.
2 turtle doves.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
On the 4th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me. Mary.
Sue Ann, I really don't
Change
want
your mind again, Mary?
4 calling birds.
3 French hens.
2 turtle doves.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
And this is where I wrote, "Thank you, Alonzo, for the gift of angry 12 days of Christmas." This is so great. We don't get to see the whole thing. We skip to the end, but we find Sue Ann gave herself the line of 5 golden rings, a very Sue Ann move. Beating Miss Piggy by 5 years.
Same vibe, though, yes.
Oh, absolutely same vibe. And at this point of the song, everyone besides Sue Ann and Georgette are just 10 lords a leaping. Till we get back around to Lou, who has something to say, and Sue Ann smiles, "I know, 3 French hens. I mean, besides 3 French hens." And Ted still belts out 2 turtle doves. Just out of habit at this point. But Lou has had enough of this. He doesn't want to sing anymore, and he doesn't want to wear any hats. And in perfect unison, he and Mary and Murray and Ted slam their hats on the floor. And a shocked Sue Ann softly says, "Well, we might as well start our Christmas dinner, even if it isn't exactly Christmas." And after that outburst, it feels more like Thanksgiving. Everyone just starts eating in silence. The only sound we hear is cutlery on plates for what seems like a very long time. Georgette, who is having a lovely time, looks around at all the long faces and feels the need to say something, so she begins to softly but powerfully sing Silent Night.
Silent night, holy night.
The audience laughs, but she continues and everyone else stops what they're doing to stare at her. She sings the whole verse, and it's a beautiful little moment here.
The show gets just sincere enough with this moment.
Yeah.
And I think a lesser sitcom would have really bathed in that moment. And instead, it just sort of makes everybody pause for a second and be like, "Oh, I'm being an a-hole."
Yeah.
You know, and they never, I don't know if they ever apologized to Sue Ann, because they really are terrible to her in this episode. She's doing nothing but feeding them amazing, souffle and carp, But yeah, there's that moment of the beautifully sincere rendition of Silent Night from Georgette that kind of forces everybody to be like, "All right, let's take a breath here."
Yeah. To the point where after Mary, overcome with emotion, asks, "Can anyone remember why we were angry at each other?" And Murray pauses for a beat before saying, "Yeah, I can remember." And Lou and Ted chime in, "So can they?" And Mary says, "Yeah, me too." And that's where this scene ends. It just ends.
That is the genius of this show, because I think most sitcoms, they would have had that moment, and then they'd all hug and learn something, and and they even get the setup line, and we're going, "Can you even remember what we were angry about?" And we're like, "Yes, I can."
Oh.
And so it's like, so that is this show is actually about human beings and not about the weird robots that sitcoms are usually about.
Yeah, you thought this was going to melt away everyone's bitterness. It got such a huge laugh out of me when it did not.
And this is the kind of thing that goes back to the very first episode of this show, the famous job interview where Lou Grant is talking to her, and at one point, she gets very kind of in high dudgeon, is like, "You're asking me a lot of questions that don't have anything to do with whether or not I'm capable for this job." And Lou looks at her and says, you've got spunk, don't you? And she's like, well, and he responds, I hate spunk. And that is a legendary sitcom moment, because it is exactly the thing of setting you up for the moment that most sitcoms would indulge in, and being like, no, we're not doing that here. And again, when everybody tells her they can remember why they're mad, that's another way of the show saying, we're not doing that here.
No, they cut right to a commercial, and then they return with everyone still around the table after they've all eaten.
Yeah. And probably consumed enough booze to knock them all on their keisters.
I sure hope so. Georgette tells Sue Ann it was the best Christmas dinner she's ever had. Mary adds everything was delicious. She does apologize and that she was in such a bad mood, and so does Lou. Apologizes for being mean, rude, and rotten the whole night, and Sue Ann tells him, don't apologize, you were just being yourself. Lou also apologizes to Mary, and Mary says she has a feeling they'd all like to apologize to each other. And Ted starts to break down in tears, asking how could we have been so lousy to each other on Christmas of all days? And Mary decides to brighten the mood by starting to sing Deck the Halls, and everyone's happy to join in as the credits roll and everyone claps. They do it twice through the credits.
Yeah, because the way the show worked was they would do like the first couple of credits and then cut to commercial and then come back and do the full credits. And so they had to do sort of the end of the final scene and then the closing credits as two separate things.
Okay. Yeah. Ted finishes strong with a la 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 la. Reminded me of Steve Carell on The Office singing Happy Birthday. And, it's all the free booze doing the singing. I'm sure that helped put them in jollier spirits as well.
No doubt. There's a throwaway line that Sue Ann has about some Christmas game they could play, but it involves like two children and a peasant's wife or something. I can't remember what it is now.
Yeah, I didn't write that one down, but I remember.
It's vaguely saucy, but
Well, so is she, but.
Exactly.
I thought between courses we could sing some carols and play Christmas games. Oh, there's this wonderful game from Finland. No. For that, you need 3 little boys and a peasant's wife.
But that's it. Do you have any final thoughts on this episode or the Mary Tyler Moore Show in general?
No, I just think it does, sort of as I mentioned, it does the things that this show does well in terms of kind of poking a hole in kind of what we're used to in terms of sitcom interactions and really kind of cutting to genuine, emotional truth, and how human beings really behave. And I think the fact of doing this, like, I'm sure at some point the network was like, we want a Christmas episode where the gang is together at Christmas.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we're not going to do that, but we'll do this. We'll do, we'll play on the fact that Sue Ann would be recording her Christmas episode early. And so we'll have this sort of the Christmas trappings, even though technically it's not Christmas. Because actually, going back to Golden Girls, my friend Jim Colucci wrote a couple of really good books about that show and did a lot of interviews with the writers and stuff. And they talked about how sitcoms that are about friends hate holiday episodes because you have to figure out some reason why these people are spending the holidays with each other and not with their own families.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Like there's 2 Christmas episodes of Golden Girls. One of them involves like they all get snowed in or something and they can't, like they're supposed to leave and they can't. And I think the other one, they get held hostage or something.
That's right.
But it's this thing of like, we have to create a reason why these people who are always together are still going to be together at Christmas and not, spending the holiday with their families. So, they solve that by making this not Christmas.
Yeah, it's kind of brilliant the way they did that. We mentioned the earlier Christmas episode of this where it's a newsroom and sometimes you have to work on Christmas. Sometimes. So that's what that's about.
Right. And she's the newbie there, so she gets stuck with a gig.
Sure. Yep. Been there. But I had a lot more fun with this episode too, even if the merriment of it took a bit to show up because it's not a Christmas episode. But I really like the way that they structured that, and they really planned out, well, they're taping this early, and oh no, there's a blizzard, which makes sense in Minneapolis. They happen in November, sure.
And I think you can only get away with an episode where people are this mad at each other and mean to each other if you have clearly established that they are good friends.
Sure.
We're in season 5 now. So the bona fides of the relationships here are firmly established. We know that Lou would walk through fire for Mary and Mary for Murray. And, Ted they have to kind of tolerate, but even still deep down, they love Ted, even though he drives them all crazy.
Sure.
But you have to have that kind of history with the characters, and the viewers are fully aware of that history to then watch an episode like this where they are just on their last nerves and not wanting to deal with each other at all.
Yeah, just watching that pot boil over, and this is the perfect setting for it. But thank you so much for recommending this, Alonzo, and thank you for joining me. This was a blast.
Oh, my great pleasure. Thank you for having me back on.
Again, folks, check the show notes for, where do you want to point them to anywhere if they want to pre-order your revised and updated edition?
Sure. Yeah. Wherever you get books, I've seen it on some of the larger retail sites and maybe not some of the other ones, but it'll be there soon enough. Patronize your local mom and pop brick and mortar bookstore and have them pre-order it, because from what I'm told, getting pre-orders really make bookstores take notice. And if they start getting pre-orders, something they think, okay, there's a lot of interest in this title, I'm going to make sure we stock in plenty of them. So if you are interested, the book's not probably dropping till September. Go ahead and pre-order now, whether it's online, whether it's in person. And thank you. I would appreciate that.
Absolutely. And if people want to invite you to an international feast and force you to wear a hat that may or may not have been stolen from a theme park ride, where else would you like them to find you on the internet?
Well, you can read my reviews of new movies at thefilmverdict.com. And I do a lot of podcasts. Check out Linoleum Knife, which I do with my husband, Dave White. I'm also a co-host of Maximum Film on the Maximum Fun Network. Christy Lemire and I have a show called Breakfast All Day that's on YouTube, but also available as a podcast. And I pop in regularly to talk about Christmas movies on Deck the Hallmark. So I'm in all those places. I'm Alonzo.Duralde on Instagram and A.Duralde on Blue Sky.
Thank you again. Please check out all of those things. Links are in the show notes, or you can find this very episode at adventcalendar.house. Tune in next time when we hop forward to Easter in July, or hop back to it. I don't know. We're flying through a temporal calendar to get there, so I guess I'll talk to you when time catches up with me. Till then, for Alonzo Duralde from my bathtub that I'm absolutely not getting out of just to answer the dang door, this is Mike Westfall with season's greetings and warnings about icy patches from around the world and around the corner, or the other way around. I don't care. Good night, y'all. Next time on the Advent Calendar House.
Here comes Peter Cottontail, hopping down the bunny trail. Hippity hopping, Easter's on its way.